Hello and welcome to our second video, part of the EnteliWEB Basics course. This video we're going to be focusing on the summary dashboard, which is kind of the main component and going to be part of your daily routine of a building operator. This is really going to give you a good overview of all the equipment on site, your zone temperatures, your schedules, your central plant if you have one, and your rooftop units and large air handlers. They're all of the important data points for those units are going to be shown on a single dashboard to give you guys a good idea of just how your building is operating and anything that might have happened over the night before you guys got back. There's several large components, or widgets as we refer to them, that's on this dashboard, and I will give you a quick view of them right here. And so just as a quick reminder, to get to your dashboard, you're going to want to go down here to graphics, the graphics module, your list of sites, and today we're just going to look at Anacostia. So by clicking the building summary, it's going to load their dashboard over here. Just give it a second. When you load this dashboard, it is going out to your site's networks of controllers, and it's pulling all of this data live onto your dashboard in real time. So the main widgets that you see here on this dashboard are going to be your zone widget. This is going to give you all the information about all the specific zones in your building and a bit of a breakdown. You're also going to see your large air equipment over here, which is broken into a couple categories. This site does have a central plant, so you're going to see some important data points here and some trend logs that's going to give you an idea of your hot water supply and cold water supply or chilled water supply. And then down here is going to be your schedule widget for adjusting schedules for your building. Now I want to focus here first on the zone widget. This is going to be the widget that you guys as a building operator are probably going to be utilizing the most. It's kind of broken into two sections here. The top section is gives you a good breakdown of your entire building. So it takes all of the zones that are throughout your building, in this case 174 zones, and it breaks it into thermal groups. And so these thermal groups are defined as just normal operating temperatures, colder rooms, warmer rooms, and rooms that are in fault. This site currently does not have any in fault, but I will talk about what that means if they're in fault. So another important part of this pie chart up here and the bottom part is to notice these settings right here. So these settings are going to be your minimum and maximum zone temperatures. And what that really means is it's how are we breaking these into groups by being in a normal range of temperature, being colder and warm. So by adjusting this, you can see if I bring this minimum zone temperature up to 72 and I bring this down to 74, what's going to happen is it's going to consider all of the zones that have a zone temperature between 72 and 74 degrees are going to be considered in the normal range. And any ones that fall below that are going to be considered cold. Any of the ones that are above that are going to be considered warm. And so you'll see when I hit apply here, it's going to adjust my pie chart to indicate these new values that we have set in here. Another important thing to note is that these values that you set in here, they are going to have no impact on these zones in the real world. This is really just for a visualization tool for you guys to use as operators. So like I said, there's going to be no impact on any of these zones. You're not changing set points. You're not adjusting anything on the equipment itself. It's just here on the dashboard. And then moving on to the second part of this widget here is going to be your list of zones. Some zones might, or some sites might have better naming. This site doesn't have great naming. I'm assuming this is the room number that this BAV is associated to. But what happens is you're going to have a list of zones that run down here with their current zone temperatures. And they're also going to be broken into the thermal groups that we mentioned up here. The only difference being is that zones that are in the normal range, in this case 73, it's going to fall right between these two. That one's going to be displayed in black. If you did have any zones that were in fault, they would appear as like a lighter gray. They do stand out. And the definition that we use for fault are any zones that are at an unusually high or low temperature, generally indicating that there's a bad sensor or a bad thermostat or it's disconnected. That will come up here. So if you see a value of like 5 degrees Fahrenheit, there's no way that any of these rooms are that. So it's going to be considered a fault. We also consider faults for disconnected controllers. So if a controller is not attached to the network and we're not getting any data from it, it's going to be considered a fault. We index all of the zones from the beginning, so they will all appear here, whether or not, depending upon what state that they're currently in, even if they are disconnected. And then another thing to note, if you do need, we'll be going over this in the next video, but if you do need to change a zone set point, you can click on any of these and it's going to bring up a little set point setter over here. And then if some sites will have this, some sites will not. If you click over here, this will bring up a pop-up that covers up most of the screen. That's going to be a unit graphic. So all the specific points there for the VAV are going to appear on this. So if you need to dig in and do some analysis of why a piece of equipment might not be operating properly, you can click this and it will create a pop-up. This site does not have it, but some sites will. And also there are some sites that will have CO2 as well. So some sites will monitor CO2 in the rooms, and if they do monitor CO2, it will appear right here on the right hand side, either in a value of ppm or as just a normal off or normal high or low. Any of those will appear over here on this side. So moving on over here, this is your large air equipment widget. We break the large air equipment into three categories. This one only has 2 different categories. The other category would be ventilation units. They all have slightly different data points along the top specific to the unit, but the idea behind this is it's going to give you an idea of how that piece of equipment is running without giving you all the other data points that come along with this unit. So most of the time, I think for all 3 of them, you're going to see fan status, which will be a clear indicator of whether or not that air handler is actually running or if it's off. In this case, this one is off. You will also notice sometimes an air handler might have a VFD on it, meaning that it can run the fan at different percentages, 0 to 100. In this case, you have a good example of 2. One that has just a fan status that's on and off, and one that has a VFD on it that's going to tell you what speed that VFD is spinning at. Another one that you'll see on most of these is going to be supply air temperature, or some people refer to it as discharge air temperature. This is in degrees Fahrenheit. This controller happens to not have the units of measure in it, so that's why it's not showing degrees Fahrenheit here, but some will. And then zone temperature, which is specific to single zone units. These are going to be units like you would see in an auditorium or a gym that are controlling really for space temperature there from a thermostat, and that's their main purpose. Whereas you have multi-zone units. These units generally are going to provide air to VAVs or to zones, or to large groups of zones that have their own thermal control at the zone level. And so a lot of times these units run by their supply air temperature and their supply air pressure. And once again, you can see we have fan status here as well. The other one that's on here doesn't include as much data points, but it is going to be your ventilation unit. That's mostly for units that are just providing outside air and, most importantly, oxygen to the spaces that they feed. Those will also be found here, and you can switch between them on this little drop down right here. All right, moving on, we have the schedule widget down here. So this is going to be show all the schedules for your site. The first column here is going to give you the name of the schedule in the system and the status of whether it is currently occupied or unoccupied. In like these cases here, these are not occupied, and I think you can kind of see that by the gym. It looks like the gym is running a little bit, but either way, this layout here kind of mimics what you see in the regular EnteliWEB beyond the dashboard. It's going to be a weekly schedule, Monday through Sunday, and any days that it's not running or unoccupied are going to be grayed out, as you see here on the right hand side of this, and these ones up here. And any ones that are running during those times will be showed as green, and it will show you your start time and your end time for this specific schedule. And then also to note, if you do need to change any of these schedules, let's say we want to change the middle wing floors, we'll be going over this more in a later video, but I just want to show you. If you click on that row, it's going to open up the EnteliWEB schedule module or schedule component, and it's going to show you here. You can make it eventually. All right, it's going to show you what day you're currently on and where you are at in that schedule. Like I said, I'm not going to go into detail on this one next. We'll do that in the next video. And then the final widget that you see on this screen is going to be your central plant. So some sites are not going to have a central plant, or they might only have hot water and not chilled water, or both in this case. So there's kind of two sections to this widget as well. The top section, which is going to be a breakdown of your hot water loop, or your hot water loop and your chilled water loop. The top unit or the top data point that you're going to see on these is most likely always going to be your supply temperature. So this is your chilled water supply temperature, and this is your hot water supply temperature. Below that are going to could be different points, but most of the time they're going to be relating to pumps to let you know, hey, is my chiller running, and are the pumps circulating water? So you'll kind of get that information from the top section up here. Below that is going to give you a trend chart. And this trend chart, depending upon what systems you have at the schools, or any site for that matter, it's going to mostly likely be your hot water supply temperature and your chilled water supply temperature. This is going to look at the past 12 or 24 hours. It depends upon the site. But you can see here, this was their supply temperature. You see a little bit of fluctuation here on their hot water supply temperature. And as you can probably tell, and when you hover over the line, it will look at, it will display to you what the time is and what the temperature reading was at that time. So it gives you a bit of idea of how your system was running ahead of time or previously, and it's going to indicate any issues that you might have been having in your hot or chilled water system that you need to dig into deeper. Some sites that do have central plant graphics, you will be able to click the chilled water loop or hot water loop header up here, and it will open up a pop-up or take you to another page that's going to show you all the live data points for your central plant. And then another thing to kind of notice, you might have saw up here on the header, we do have a link to the alarm section and our data analytics or SkySpark up here. Clicking this alarms, if this site did have any current alarms, they would be listed here on this page. They currently don't, but what will happen, you'll see the number of alarms up here and then the list of alarms here when you open this. And this is where you can actually acknowledge nuisance and interact with the different alarms for your site, which we'll be covering in another video as well. Beyond that, a nice little feature down here, I forgot to show it to you guys. If you are not interested in this breakdown and you just want to see the larger list, you can always click this and it will expand it. It will still allow you to sort these. So right now it's defaulted to all, and so you'll see all of them here. If you hit cool, it's going to filter for just the rooms that are below your minimum zone temperature, and then of course warm and fault. And I think that's it for this video. I'll see you guys on the next one.